Welcome back to the Bleav in Indianapolis Colts podcast, everybody. We are your hosts, Jake Arthur, here alongside Zach Hicks, and we are on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you believe? Never miss an episode of the show by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to rate and review the show to let us know how you're digging it and to beef up our ratings, because that would be pretty sick. We are deep on the U.S. charts right now, so we would love to move up a little bit. But yeah, thanks for being with us on this special live edition of the show. It is draft week, so we had to do something fun. Today we're going to put together a little 1-round predictive NFL mock draft, followed up by a 7-round Colts mock. I went ahead and asked Zach earlier this week what we wanted to do, and we decided why not both. So that is what we're doing. But yeah, before we get started, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports action. They have you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bets, and it is free to sign up.
Head to the website betonline.ag or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
Yes, thank you to BetOnline, our longtime sponsor. But now, we're going to get funky. We're going to go ahead and get into this draft here, man. So again, this is a predictive draft because we've heard a lot of smoke to things that we can pretty much guarantee are going to happen at this point, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's what Zach or I would do. That we've all had the opportunity to do the what we would do type of stuff. So what we're going to focus on today is really just our best shot at what we think is closest to happening. So Zach is going to go ahead and take the odd numbers, and he's got a real tough task here. Number 1 with the Jaguars. What do you got going on here, man?
You could actually put the board up on the screen. Or where are we streaming this to?
This is on YouTube and Facebook. Cool. Let me go ahead. Let's see.
Which YouTube are we on? We're on your YouTube?
Yeah, we're on. This is streaming to mine this time. Nice. This is my first time using this, friends. So you can go ahead and just bear with me. I'll try and bring the draft board up here.
Yeah, that way people can follow along, watch the video.
Yeah, here we go.
There you go.
It's small. It's small, but it's going to work out.
Yeah, it'll work out.
Yeah, you can follow along pick by pick. You can see here we got 1 through 32 going. Highlighted in green are the teams that have multiple picks in the first round, just to kind of keep tabs on what they've done in the pick beforehand. And then you got the Colts picks down there at the bottom, all 6 of their picks. So Zach, what do we got going first up, man? Can I go ahead and write it in?
Yeah, right on in. Are you gonna write in? Yeah. Yep, Ian Book. No, I'm just kidding.
Ian Book, Notre Dame.
Ian Book. Now, Trevor Lawrence obviously is going to be the pick. I don't think anyone's even been secretive about that at all. Lawrence, I believe they had this big charity event thing going or whatever to give Lawrence like wedding gifts or something, like Jaguars fans doing that for him, and it turned into some big charity thing, which is really cool. But yeah, no one's really being secretive about it. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback in this class. Some would say the best since Andrew Luck. I'm maybe not that high on him, but it just makes a lot of sense for them to go with Trevor Lawrence here. They haven't had a quarterback of his caliber maybe ever in their franchise history. So getting a guy like Trevor Lawrence just makes too much sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that one's been written in stone for quite some time now. So
yeah.
All right. Jets. That one also, we've also known that is Zach Wilson, the BYU quarterback. Yeah, so that one, it's a bit risky for them. Probably, other than Trey Lance, probably the riskiest of these quarterbacks. But, all the experts who are kind of plugged into this thing have said that's what they're doing all along. So, take Pitt's number. Let's see.
You can click it when it
play along. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Exactly.
No
one went to.
We can't quote that. That movie is so bad. It's so bad.
Honestly, someone else said this yesterday, but I haven't seen it either.
It's so bad.
Like
if you want to watch a movie that is like a parody of the NFL draft, which is perfectly fine. Like by all means, please parody it. But parody of the NFL draft along with like a lot of office romance. It's it's definitely the movie for you. It's interesting.
Dude, what's the NFL draft without a little love, though, man?
Yeah. GMs always hit on their secretaries or whoever. I don't even know what she was in the movie, but he was hitting on her the entire movie, and they had like she was like pregnant with his baby or something. I don't know. It was really weird.
Okay.
Really weird. And then he took a linebacker first overall. We're not doing that, unfortunately.
Number 1 overall?
Number 1, yeah. He traded up and took a linebacker.
Traded up and oh my god! All right, so that's a whole nother conversation we can get into on draft day. We're just gonna have a draft day smear campaign for one of our episodes, but that's not today. San Fran third up. I don't think this is a move either of us would make ourselves.
Oh, she was the cap officer. Yeah, that's what I guarantee. Chris Ballard is impregnating his cap officer right now. Like I think it's
Mike Bloom.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how accurate that movie was. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
Moving on. The third pick here, obviously this is not what I would do. But I think it's going to come down to Mac Jones or Trey Lance. I feel like there's just been too much smoke to completely ignore it. And unfortunately, I'm going to go with Mac Jones here for the pick. Again.
Who? Mac Jones.
McCorkle Jones, or however you say his name. I don't think he should be going third. I remember saying early in the offseason that Mac Jones is the type of quarterback for like the Colts. If he were there at 21, I'd be fine with taking him. I wouldn't trade up for him with the Colts pick at 21, let alone trading up to the third overall pick for him. But I think he's going to be a very adequate quarterback, very solid in the NFL, probably start, a good 5 to 10 years, and maybe not move the needle for you, but in an offense like San Fran's, he can probably run that at a fairly high level. So obviously they could go with a higher potential guy here with Justin Fields or Trey Lance, but I hope they take Trey Lance or Justin Fields, but it just feels like it's a lot saying that it's going to be Mac Jones right now.
Yeah, I would have thought that that Justin Fields would have, fit or not, even though he does fit. I mean, you're looking at ceiling too. Mac Jones just doesn't really do it for you. This has a very Blake Bortles type of feel to it, where people were like, surely Blake Bortles isn't going to go that high, and then he did.
Yeah.
So up next, Atlanta Falcons. I know who I would like to put here. I still like Matt Ryan, but I would put Justin Fields here. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it is Kyle Pitts' time, if we're guessing. I don't know what the situation with Julio is. If they are going to trade Julio, which with the money involved, it doesn't sound super likely. But if they trade Julio, would you imagine just the reset button getting hit?
Man, probably. I don't know, man. That offense would be so much fun with Julio, Ridley, and Kyle Pitts, along with a really good head coach, coordinator type in the dude who came from the Titans. I can't remember his name right now. What's his name?
Arthur Smith. Yeah.
Arthur Smith. Yeah. Excellent coach. I think he's going to be really good for them. And getting Pitts, even though, his type of offense doesn't really run through the tight end, I do think, getting a guy like Pitts would make, that offense just so dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So Bengals. I'm intrigued by this one. Do you give Joe Burrow his familiar weapon, or for the love of God, do you protect him?
That's tough, man. I go back and forth on it. Because I don't really think you can go wrong either way. You're either going to get a very good receiver who can win contested catch situations where, a guy like Joe Burrow, he doesn't have the strongest arm. There's going to be more contested catch situations than maybe a lot of quarterbacks would have. On the other hand, Sewell is a great prospect and could become a top tier left tackle in the NFL one day. I'm going to go with Sewell here. I just think that's ultimately what's going to happen. I could see it possibly being Chase. I think it's 50-50 right now. They probably think it's 50-50 right now in their own organization, but
yeah,
I think ultimately you got to go with the left tackle. I mean, you just invest in your quarterback, and he just tore, everything in his leg last year because of, protection issues or whatever it was. But yeah, I think you need to protect him.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know how much they've used Burrow to dig into Chase, because Chase also didn't play last year either.
Yeah.
He was a COVID opt-out. So the last time he played was with Joe Burrow. All right, the Dolphins, it's their first pick of 2. So the guy we were just talking about, Ja'Marr Chase, I don't think there's any better time than now to go ahead and put him in. Ja'Marr Chase.
Yeah, their experts seem pretty keen on it being whoever's there between Pitts and Chase, they're going to take, and that's why they trade up to that spot. So, yeah, if one of them's there, I'm pretty sure that would be the pick.
Yeah, and as far as Mike Gesicki being there, you could play 2 tight ends, and with those 2 guys, they're close enough to receivers basically where it doesn't matter. You could play both of them at all times. And in the modern NFL, 2 tight ends is nothing new whatsoever. Because I just know that conversation would come where people would ask what it means for Gesicki. It really doesn't have to mean much of anything, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Detroit basketball. And by basketball, I mean Lions football. That is your pick. This is a tough one.
I feel like they're not going to go tackle, even though I feel like their fan base would want to tackle up that high. And, if it were me right now, Justin Fields or Trey Lance, I think would be the guy I'd go with. I don't, but I'm not a Jared Goff guy. The Lions seem like they are Jared Goff guys, so they'd probably roll with him these next couple of years for whatever reason. So I'm going with one of the Bama receivers, and I think I'm just going to go with Smith here, Devonta Smith, even though Jalen Waddle's my wide receiver 1. I just think Devonta Smith, after the big year he just had, he won the Heisman, was one of the most productive receivers in college football history. Just does a lot of great things for an offense. He can get open super quick, best route runner in the class. I just think it makes a lot of sense to get that quick separator when you have a guy like Jared Goff as your quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw Goff use Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods both as safety nets, both guys who can run routes. They weren't the fastest guys, but Smith is pretty fast on top of it. So if he's looking for a safety net type, because Kenny Golladay is not that separator, that was going to be – actually, he's on the Giants anyway, so that doesn't matter.
Yeah, he would have been. But that's probably why they let him go. It just probably wouldn't have meshed very well.
Yeah. As soon as I was saying that, I was like, well, that doesn't matter. But yeah, no Marvin Jones and no Kenny Golladay, so they've got to have some bodies out there. Carolina Panthers, if not for acquiring Sam Darnold, I would have thought that this would be a perfect spot for Justin Fields, but they did not. This will be let's see. Smith's off the board.
I do think this will be a spot where somebody will trade up for Fields or Lance. Maybe the Broncos, maybe the Patriots, because we get to this point. Even the last pick I just made at 7. I feel like that could be a spot where one of those teams trade up for Lance or Fields. But we shouldn't do trades, honestly, because I don't want to mess with that compensation.
It opens up a whole thing there. There's a couple defenders I'd really like to look at, but I think I'm going to go with another receiver. I think I'm going to go back-to-back Bama receivers and go Jalen Waddle here. They
so explosive.
Yeah, they just made the investment in Sam Darnold. They don't have Curtis Samuel. They needed more playmakers there anyways. So Jalen Waddle, it is back-to-back Bama receivers.
Yeah, and this is kind of going the way that a lot of experts were hinting at earlier this week, that it could be an all-offense top 10. And that's kind of the way we're going with our predictive here, because my next pick with the Broncos, I'm going to go with Trey Lance. I feel like he's the quarterback who fits them the best. I feel like that they're probably higher on Trey Lance than most teams are. Mm-hmm. I could see them trading up to 8 or 7 or maybe even higher than that. Probably not to 6 with the Dolphins, because the Dolphins want to stay there. But I'd probably see 7 or 8 just to keep the Patriots away from them with that pick. But yeah, Trey Lance, smartest quarterback in the class, is what we've heard a lot. I've talked to people around the North Dakota State program, and yeah, they've all repeated the same things. I mean, he called his own protections. He's a genius on the whiteboard, along with having high-end physical traits. So, at 9, I feel like that's a great pick for a team that really needs a different type of quarterback. Drew Lock, I think, can be okay in this league, but they can't go another year with what they just had, especially with how good that roster is right now.
Yeah, and he's a guy that could go as high as 3 from what I'm sure you've been seeing as well. It's pretty much down to Mac Jones or Trey Lance at number 3. It's probably a little high, a little too rich for either of those guys, but it's going to happen. So for Trey Lance to be there at 9, I've seen a lot of Justin Fields mocked there as well. It's just preference, man. We kind of know who the guys are. We just don't know what the order is. So
yeah, exactly.
That's a good pick right there. And then that then presents the issue of what happens with Drew Lock. Who knows? Another kind of mid to lower tier young quarterback who would potentially become available, kind of a Sam Darnold type of situation there. Next up, I've got the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this is a team that always needs defense.
They always take offense.
They always need defensive help. Man. I am going to go ahead and give them – I've seen this one so many times, but Patrick Surtain II, it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I feel like they're going to go with one of those two corners, either him or Horn.
Horn, yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes it 4 Alabama guys in the top 10, which is really nothing new. All right, so now up, you've got the New York Giants.
New York Giants. The most Gettleman pick that is left
would be Najee Harris.
Okay, besides Najee Harris, the most Gettleman pick, I'm going to go with it, even though he's got the off-field issues, is Micah Parsons, linebacker. It just screams Gettleman. It's not the highest positional value, taking a linebacker that high. But he's a good football player, like on the field, very dynamic, great against the run. He can improve a little bit against the pass, but he has that ability as a pass rusher as well. So
yeah,
I think that fits a lot with what their defense does too, has that aggressive type of defense. And I just feel like that's Gettleman's guy in this class. It just feels like a Gettleman type of pick.
I could see that. Tough Penn State guy who can do a little bit of everything. I could definitely see that. You never know what Gettleman's going to do except for not trade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So the Eagles, it's another team that like pretty much always needs the same stuff. They need cornerback all the time. Let's see. Our guy Nick Sirianni didn't commit to Jalen Hurts yet, but he's going to want to say there's competition everywhere. But if indeed Howie Roseman, was it Roseman or Lurie who said no competition at quarterback?
I think it was Roseman, but it might have been Lurie. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it was one of the top 2 people in the organization. So just going off of that. Yeah, I mean, they always need help everywhere. Let's go JC Horn.
Yeah, I can see that. There's been some reports that they might try to trade up to like 9 or 8 or something like that to take one of those corners away from the Cowboys. So I could definitely see them taking the other one that's there when their pick comes up.
Exactly. Without any movement in this mock, they still wind up landing one of their top guys. All right. So it's we're at 13 now, and Justin Fields is still on the board, which is it doesn't feel right.
No. I feel like, again, personally, if it were up to me, he goes second in this draft.
Me too.
Roseman goes rogue with their draft board. They confirmed it in the press. What's the most Roseman pick then? Is Roseman like a JC Horn type of guy?
Man, let's see. I don't feel like they always do the same thing, but
he'll take a JJ Arcega-Whiteside. Who's the most JJ Arcega-Whiteside receiver in this class?
Or Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. I feel like JC Horn's the type of guy that could go with though, but the Chargers, I feel like
Philadelphia will.
Yeah, the Chargers are one of the few teams where I wouldn't mock Justin Fields to in the top 32 of this draft. But I think the Chargers would be malpractice if you don't go with an offensive tackle here, and I think Rashawn Slater makes a ton of sense. He's a top 6 player on my board. Huge fan of his game. I think he can be. I honestly think he could be a top 3 guard in the league if that's the way they want to play him. But I also think he can be, a very good tackle. So whichever way the Chargers would like to use him, because they have needs across their offensive line like usual, I think Rashawn Slater just makes so much sense for their team.
Yeah, I'm going to consider him an OL on this. Yeah. They can pick whatever position they want, but he's an offensive lineman for this exercise. Yeah. So the Vikings, I'm not going to go cornerback on here, even though you would think they always want to.
Oh, dude, Zimmer is probably fighting everyone right now for Greg Newsome.
Yeah. So I'm thinking either offensive line or edge.
Well, they just lost Riley Rife, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Their offensive line in general has just always been in shambles, inside and out.
Their right tackle situation's good with O'Neal, but I think that's really it on their offensive line in terms of like high quality starters or like above average starters.
Yeah, so they could always upgrade anywhere. I'll give them Elijah Vera Tucker to decide inside or out. Just like you did with Rashawn Slater, those guys are both considered elite offensive linemen who could be just outstanding inside, but still hold their own and be high level players outside. It makes a lot of sense for a team like the Vikings that has multiple needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Vera Tucker's game too. I think he can be kind of like Slater, where I said I think he can be a top 3 guard in the league one day, or could even be one of the better tackles in football. Like I really like the potential of him and Slater. So those guys going back to back, honestly, I'd probably take them higher in this class. But offensive skill positions are going to push everything else down.
Yeah, I mean, again, if it was based on if it was our big boards, what we would do, I think those guys would probably be off the board by now. Especially building teams from the inside out rather than adding skill positions, because adding skill positions to teams that don't have it all together yet is kind of just a temporary band-aid. But yeah, let's see. You've got the very high honor of picking for the Patriots now. Oh, I see what's about to happen here.
Yeah, I mean it makes the most sense. Justin Fields here to the Patriots.
Yeah.
Again, if it were up to us, no way in hell we would let this happen. But I do think either the Patriots or another team's going to trade up into the top 10 to take Fields come draft night. But again, we're not doing trades in this mock. Justin Fields, I think, is the second best quarterback in this class. I think he's closer to quarterback 1 than he is to quarterback 3. I think he does a lot of great things on the field. There are some issues with going through his progressions and reading defenses, especially against certain looks. So I'm not going to say that the analysts are wrong when they say that, but I do think you can kind of mitigate those issues early, give him some more half-field type reads and kind of limit his vision in certain aspects of his game, and then he can grow from there. I mean, he's a really smart player. He did a lot for the Ohio State team. Very tough player who won big games for them. I don't know why he would be here at 15, but it's the draft. Stupid things happen.
Yeah, to me, he's the quarterback this year who should go high. But after we know the other guys are going to go, there's no clear-cut team in that top 10 to pick him. So like you said, I do think he's a prime candidate for someone to go up and get him. I don't think he'll leave the top 10 picks or so. I think someone will go get him. It seems weird to have him still there at 15 to the Patriots. It could even be the Patriots that gets him, but I don't think it'll be at 15.
Honestly, which teams would move up? It would be the Patriots that could move up. The Broncos will probably move up for one of them.
The Raiders are a dark horse team to do it.
Bears.
I've seen stuff about Washington.
Yeah, Washington's been rumored a lot for liking Lance. But again, I think ultimately the Broncos are going to move up to like 7 or 8 for Lance. Just a gut feeling.
A couple of.
Because that's just an easier move for them to make too. And also, if you're a team like the Lions or the Panthers, would you rather drop all the way down to 19 or would you rather drop to 9?
Yeah, exactly. Even if you're still in the top 10, trading back even just a little bit is still, you'll get a lot for it. So
yeah, they could still get like a round pick out of the Broncos for that.
Yeah, that would be the dream. Okay, so Cardinals up next. They have a million people to throw to, it seems. Let's see. They did just lose one do-it-all defender and I have no idea where this guy is actually going to go, but it could be as high as here. It's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame.
You nailed the pronunciation of that one.
Hey, I'm usually good at pronouncing strange names, or it's strange to English. It's not strange to his background, but
yeah, it's not a strange name by any means. It's just
now spelling it is that's about to be a real issue, my friend.
I love this pick though. He's 7th on my big board. I'm a huge fan of his game. I personally have him as a safety, but like you said, you could play him at linebacker, you could play him at slot corner. Just a physical guy who plays bigger than his frame. I'm a huge fan of his game.
Yeah, I like to match him up with Isaiah Simmons from last year. I think that's if they have the opportunity to have like two of those defenders who you can just play in multiple spots, then I just think that makes your defense really dynamic, really multiple, and really can't lose there. And they play in a really fast division. So,
dude, having those two along with Budda Baker is just that's a fun defense right there. No matter who else you have, they could probably go outside corner because I think they need some outside corners too, but that's a fun, fast defense right there.
Yeah. Raiders. Now, okay, so what you need to do for the Raiders is take someone who was supposed to go at the end of the first.
Oh, I already know who I'm doing that. I'm doing that.
Okay.
I'm gonna Christian Barmore. I think it's Barmore. Is how you say it.
Yeah, I say Barmore.
So there's been character concerns coming out about him recently that teams might not take him in the first round. He's been slipping out of mock drafts and stuff. But the Raiders guys who I follow and the guys who I've been looking at their feeds and stuff like that and their reports all say that the Raiders love Christian Barmore. Like they absolutely love him and they would take him in the first round. So it just feels like a Raiders pick, a pick that we're all like, what are you doing? It might work out. Barmore had a great end to last season. Very, very dominant film over the last 4 or 5 games. So it could definitely end up being a great pick, but I wouldn't take him here personally.
Yeah, it's weird because the Raiders pick up players that I like. They just do it way earlier than I would do. Like I liked Cleveland Farrell coming out. I thought he was a candidate for the Colts at 26 a couple years ago, I think it was. Damon Arnett, you and I both love Damon Arnett, and they took him way higher than anyone else would have.
Yeah.
And
Abram. I liked Abram, too, the year before.
Abram was a big candidate for the Colts that year as well. The running back that I, of course, can't think of right now.
Jacobs?
Yeah, Josh Jacobs. And of course, Christian Barmore, the top defensive tackle. So don't dislike him as a player, but, probably not this early. The Dolphins. So I gave them Jamar Chase first. And let's see. I feel like, did they just do a trade today?
They traded a guard. They traded Eric Flowers away.
Okay. So they got rid of Eric Flowers. Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. I think you know who you have to pick here, but it means the Colts don't get him. So it hurts a little bit. Yeah.
There's a certain edge rusher that a lot of us would like to.
It just makes too much sense. It's a typical Flores type of pass rusher.
Oh yeah, Kwity Paye from Michigan, and he's got plenty of. It feels like there's been a lot of Michigan connections to the Patriots over the years, and Brian Flores coming from there. It's Kwity Paye, Michigan to the Dolphins. That's always. This is one of the
Jacob's losing it in the comments right now.
Yeah.
This is one of the more confident ones I feel about in this class. And obviously it could still not happen, especially now that they have an opening at left tackle. They could definitely go left tackle here, but man, it just makes so much sense. Kwity Paye just fits their defense.
Yeah. And again, you and I have discussed this ad nauseum. It's harder to find an elite edge rusher than it is to get by with the left tackle that you can just kind of toss.
Yeah. And we were talking about right before we started the stream here is, in this edge rusher class, right? Like there's a lot of interesting type of guys, very interesting players. But when you look at it, Jalen Phillips, will he go in the first round with his injury issues? Maybe not. Honestly, if I were running a team, I probably wouldn't take him in the first. I'd be terrified of all that. Azeez Ojulari has a knee issue, and honestly, I don't think he's near the level of Kwity Paye. And then you look at some other guys, Joe Tryon's a good player, but he's like the same mold as Kwity Paye, but not as good an athlete. Jason Owe is as good an athlete, but he doesn't have any production whatsoever and has no clue what he's doing as a pass rusher. So it just Kwity Paye should be the first edge taken. And honestly, if it were up to me, he'd go higher than this in this class. But to the Dolphins, it just makes a lot of sense, and I feel like that's what's going to happen on draft day.
Yeah, he's the cleanest with the least issues, and it's not because he's some otherworldly prospect. It's because it's survival of the fittest, and he's the edge you can least pick apart up at the top, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, you got your former team, Washington football team, up next. What are they going to do?
So a lot of people have been talking left tackle with them, but I think Cornelius Lucas is a solid player. Corner, they're pretty solid. They're a pretty solid team all around, honestly.
Yeah.
I was going to say Bateman, but Bateman, I know the league is a little bit lower on him than
And they don't quite have as much of a need anymore. With they picked up Curtis Samuel, didn't they?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it just doesn't make as much sense. So you probably want to go to defense. They're all good across the defensive line. Linebacker, maybe, but if Joke and Parsons are gone, man, what linebackers would I take here? I mean, I would probably take Browning here or something, but I don't think they're going to do that.
Oh, Baron Browning, yeah.
Yeah. Let's give them. Yeah, you know what? Let's give them Greg Newsome. Newsome.
Cornerback.
I think.
Top available cornerback.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, he's got some of the best potential in this entire class. But then when you add in that he's only 20 years old and he put up as good a film as he did last year in the Big Ten, I think it makes a lot of sense. And also, he wouldn't have to be the number one corner right away because they signed who they signed? They signed William Jackson this offseason.
Yeah.
So they can plop Greg Newsome at the other outside corner spot. You have Kendall Fuller in the slot. You got some good safeties on the back end as well, which they probably could address safety as well. They could do that in their second round pick. But I really like Greg Newsome there. You really get a lockdown secondary along with, arguably the best pass rush unit in all of football.
Yeah, they've had one of the more quietly solid defenses, it seems, for the past few years, and that's the kind of move you make to keep that going. Okay, it's the Bears. It's time for the Bears. Man, it's another one of those. Book. They basically have Ian Book and Andy Dalton. It's another one of those teams you could do just about anything with.
I feel like corner makes sense for them too, but which one of the corners would make sense here?
Right. Like, are they comfortable enough with Caleb Farley up top?
Farley is very similar to Kyle Fuller, so I could see that. But the injuries, did you see that report that came out today from Pelissaro? 2
back surgeries. And, of course, his agent says he's going top 20, but a lot of teams don't even know if he's going to go round 1. Yeah,
well, he has a torn ACL in his history plus 2 back surgeries, and he still apparently has some nerve issues in parts of his body. So it's like, man, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't take that in the first round.
Man. So this receiver is a total crapshoot to me because I don't know where he'll truly go. I've seen him high, I've seen him low, but most people seem to like him. I'm going with Terrace Marshall.
So Mooney, Marshall, and
Robinson.
That's Andy Dalton's gonna throw for 3,000 yards and 20 touchdowns and 15 picks.
He's gonna set the world on fire. But how long do you think Robinson's really gonna be there and happy?
Well, he got franchise tagged again, right?
Right, exactly. And
so they won't franchise tag him. They won't do it a third year because that's just then you're paying even over quarterback money for him.
Yeah.
So he'll be a free agent next year. Marshall fits a lot of the similar type of mold. Obviously he's not as good as Allen Robinson, but there was a knee issue with him, I think, that popped up at the combine, at the medical checks.
The recheck. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but so who knows if he goes in the first round still, but for me, I'd have him right around that range. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he's a guy I have no idea where he's going because I've seen him this high and I've seen him top of the second. You just never know. Now you have another big honor. You have the Colts pick. Kwity Paye is off the board.
Yeah, so ideally here I would trade back. I think that's what Chris Ballard would do if the board felt like this. Obviously if he got trade offers, because there's one thing that we don't really talk about enough with trading back is it takes two to tango. Like you can't just say, okay, here is where I'll trade back and then just take a bad offer or don't take, or, you don't get any offers at all. So who knows what the offer is going to look like at this point. But I think if everything's staying pat and they had to stick at this pick, I do Bleav it'll be Alex Leatherwood from Alabama. Okay. I think he's a guy who checks every single box for Chris Ballard. Senior Bowl guy, 41 starts at Alabama in his college career. Dominant run blocker, elite athlete from his testing. Just hits every single box that Chris Ballard looks. And then you lock up that left tackle position for a minimum of 5 years. And we've seen how valuable how much he values that offensive line. I feel like you could go with Christian Darrisaw here. You could go with a couple of other players, maybe Jalen Phillips, if they really wanted to go risky with it. Maybe Joe Tryon. He fits a lot of what they like as well. But I think Alex Leatherwood, if they had to stick at 21 with how the board is right here, is the Chris Ballard type of guy that he'd go with.
Yeah, and it's one that we wouldn't quite see coming. I mean, other than you've talked about it, but with some of the guys on the board, other people would be yelling for some of these other names, and Christian Darrisaw included. But like you said, there's some guys that just kind of like check every box, and they just make too much sense.
Yeah, and I will say with Leatherwood, he is getting some late first-round buzz. From what I've heard, there are teams in that late first-round range that would take him there. Mm-hmm. So taking him at 21 to ensure that you do get him, it could be something that Chris Ballard does. We've always seen him make these picks that we think like, oh, that's way too – like Michael Pittman Jr. last year. Right? I liked Michael Pittman Jr. a lot, and I actually mocked him to the Colts in my last mock draft. I didn't think he would be gone by 34. I thought that would be a trade back spot, or that would be a pick where, you would take someone a little higher up on the board. But they took Pittman Jr. because they didn't want to risk not getting him with their next pick. This could be the similar type of situation with Alex Leatherwood, where they didn't want to, risk not getting him.
Yeah. And, for those who would say Jalen Phillips, to me, it seems like almost every year there's a guy who has great talent but has injury concerns, and he becomes a fan favorite of Colts fans, but the Colts just won't touch him. It feels to me like that's Phillips this year. He's a no doubt talent, but there's just something about I just don't see the Colts biting. I just don't.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like you and I just talking, like watching ball. We can look at what Jalen Phillips did last year and also the testing numbers he put up and say, that's a guy who should go top 10. Because it should, everything that he's put on there on film last year and with his testing numbers should go top 10. It's just a great talent, great player. But when you are responsible, your career is on the line with every big pick, with every first round pick, your career is on the line because that's what you're scrutinized for. When we think of Ryan Grigson, we think of Bjorn Werner and Philip Dorsett and all those missed first round picks. Mm-hmm. Now with a guy like Phillips, it's not just that he's a 1 year wonder because that's what he was in college, but also he had 5 or more concussions that UCLA was forced to retire him because of a policy they have. On top of that, he's had wrist surgery, he's had ankle surgery in his career. That's a lot of injuries. That's a lot of toll on the body when he's a 22, 23-year-old guy. What's it going to be when he's 26, 27?
That's going to be an old 30-year-old player.
Yeah.
If he would get to that point.
It's just tough. Again, I see the talent. I would take him high. But if I were running a franchise and I had to bet on one of these guys in the first round, I would bet on a guy like Joe Tryon, who has less red flags than a guy like Phillips, even though I think Phillips is a better player. So it's just tough. That's how teams and players have to look at it. I love Jalen Phillips. I'd probably take him at 21, but man, that's just tough. It's tough. It's a lot.
I'll put it this way. I would like it if they did it, but if they passed him up, I would totally understand.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a good player. I really do. From everything we've heard that he's this hardworking guy who, obviously put together a great season last year. And I think he's going to be a good pro. It's just there's just so many variables with it that are scary.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up, AFC South Titans, the AFC South rival Titans. Now, their cupboard at receiver and tight end is just bad.
And corner.
Yeah, they have a lot of needs. They need a tackle also. It's a really tough pick because you would love to put Caleb Farley here, but
But the
it's like,
injuries,
do they trust his medicals? Receiver, none of these guys move the needle quite enough for me yet to pull the trigger here. I've mocked Tevin Jenkins to them at this point, and I like that. But if they like Caleb Farley's medicals or they're fine with it, then I think he's off the board by this point. So I'll go ahead and give them Caleb Farley.
I like it.
You know, they lost to Dory Jackson the year before. They no Logan Ryan, Malcolm Butler. Like, they have needs, you know. So we'll go Caleb Farley here. They're getting a top 10, top 12 talent for, you know, the 22nd pick. And if his medicals are fine, then they get him at an absolute bargain. So Virginia Tech. All right.
And then I'll take the medical risk here. You know, we just want this whole thing about I wouldn't take him in the first round, and GMs it'd be tough. But I think when you're the Jets and you have a second first round pick and you have a new regime, you can take a risk like this on a high talent player. So I think Jalen Phillips to the Jets here makes a lot of sense. Again, risky player with all the injuries, but man, if it hits, you can get a guy who's a top 5 player in this entire class. So I think it's worth it when you have a second first round pick like that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I mean, how long has it been since they've had a real standout edge rusher? It's been a while. They've tried to do it a couple times and it just hasn't really cut out. But Phillips could be really good. It's just a matter of how long does his body stand up to it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So Pittsburgh Steelers.
This one's been kind of you work with the Pittsburgh Steelers guy, so I'm sure he's been talking about the pick that it's going to be the running back that they're going to take in the first round.
It's tough because I mean, your running back can only run behind the line. That creates things for them.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't do it, obviously.
No. I'm kind of wondering if this is a good spot for Christian Darrisaw.
Yeah, I mean, a tackle, like, you know, if we're being logical about it, a tackle makes a ton of sense here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead with Darrisaw because I don't think he should even still be here by this point. And you know, Alejandro Villanueva is gone. And again, what good's a running back behind a line that's not creating yards? Let's go ahead with Christian Darrisaw here. Another Virginia Tech player off the board. So you got the Jaguars' second pick now. You gave them a franchise quarterback with the first one, and now, you know, they've got some needs. Their offensive line is sketchy. They've like never had a good tight end, at least not in the last like 15, 20 years, it seems.
Yeah, so I love the receiver group right now. So I wouldn't take receiver here. You know, Chark, Chenault. I really like the receiver group, so I wouldn't take a receiver here. I'm actually looking at their depth chart real quick just to make sure. Oh, they do have Jawan Taylor there. So I was going to give them Tevin Jenkins, but they have Jawan Taylor, who they just spent a high second round on. They just franchised Cam Robinson.
Yeah, they're a tricky one for sure.
You know what they could do? You could take Tevin and play him at right guard for a year. And then move him to left tackle when camp. Yeah. You could play him at right guard, and then you can move him to left tackle when Robinson leaves in free agency next year. So let's go with Tevin Jenkins there. I think shoring up the offensive line for Trevor Lawrence, you know, it's your first year with a new young quarterback. You're not going to be able to fix the entire defense, so why not just shore up that offense and try to outscore teams in that first year with Trevor Lawrence. So Tevin Jenkins at right guard for year one, and then you can kind of, you know, while he's a right guard, you kind of work on him to be their eventual left tackle. I think Lyle Collins did the same thing with the Cowboys, except I think it was left guard to right tackle. So you can kind of do that same thing with Tevin Jenkins for them.
Yeah, I like that pick because, again, they have just enough on the offensive line to get by for this year. So anything you're kind of looking at is more of a next year thing, unless you get an inside player. And in this instance, you're putting Jenkins on the inside. So the Browns, they would have been a good edge pick, but they just got Clowney. Personally, I'm not a big Jadeveon Clowney believer. So it really doesn't remove the position off the board for me. They're also a candidate for corner, I think. But they've already kind of got one smaller corner with Denzel Ward. Interesting. I think – here, let me take Darius off the board. So I think they could oof, man. That's a tricky one.
The Browns are tough because people keep saying receiver for them.
Yeah.
People like receiver for them there. But, again, I feel like the league is lower on Bateman than media is.
Right.
And outside of that, like who would the league – because the league doesn't like tiny guys typically outside of Hollywood Brown that went up there.
And the next
so
guy
like
is
Elijah Moore. Smith. Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people whisper about Diami Brown, but I just don't think that makes sense for them, at that big.
All right. So I think I got it leveled down to an edge rusher, someone who could take a year to develop behind Clowney when Clowney inevitably is not there next year. So Ojulari, I guess, is the logical pick. There's a few ways you could go about it. You could do Jason Owe, Gregory Rousseau, Joe Tryon. Carlos Basham is getting a lot of first-round buzz. But I think Azeez Ojulari is probably, if there was a consensus, he's probably closer to that next up edge rusher that would go. So I'll go ahead and go Azeez Ojulari. He is a guy that needs a little bit to develop, I think. Having him just, play sparing snaps alongside Clowney and Myles Garrett, I think that makes sense. And then they'll hopefully for them have a decent edge rusher once Clowney is gone. So I will give them Azeez Ojulari, the edge defender from Georgia.
Perfect.
All right, Ravens. Now the Ravens always have a type, and they always get it. Like every pick the Ravens ever make, you're like, not to be corny, but that's so Raven. Every time they make a pick, it's That's So Raven. Is that an old reference for you? You do not know That's So Raven? Oh, guys. The older crowd, you'll have to chime in on that.
You keep cutting out a little bit for me, so I couldn't even get the joke.
I said That's So Raven every time they make a pick. That was a show like in the 90s. Yeah, don't worry about it.
I mean, they do have a type. It's typically – yeah.
Cutting out.
All right, there we go. I think you're kind of back now. Can you hear me? Okay. All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, dude, you keep maybe you have to leave and come back in for a second because you just keep cutting out for me.
Yeah, let me hop out real quick, everybody, and then I'll come back in. You can just entertain the commenters.
I'll entertain them. Yeah, That's So Raven. Very, very fun show. Oh, man. You guys have any questions while we're just kind of rolling through it here? Because it's just me for like 10 seconds, 20 seconds. I think it was Disney, Jason. I'm not too sure, though. I'm pretty sure it was Disney. I don't really.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go. Now you're back. They're having a conversation if it's Warner Brothers or Disney. I'm pretty sure That's So Raven was Disney.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Hopefully someone else caught that joke because that was some real quality dad joke shit. That was good, and I will not go off that hill.
So keeping with what you were saying there about the Ravens, they love their edge rushers, and they just lost two of them. But I'm not going to go edge here because I think after you get past Kwity Paye and Jalen Phillips and maybe even Azeez Ojulari, it kind of drops a tier to, all these guys who are athletic but multiple type, Joe Tryon, Jason Owe, they're all kind of in that same type of tier. So I feel like they could wait to their second pick for that. And I'm going to go with a safety who I think fits is That's So Raven. They're very Ravens, and that's Trayvon Mooring. I think that's just the exact type of player they like on their defense. To go with those two great corners they have, I just think that'll be a huge addition for them. So I'm super, super high on Moehrig. I have him as a top 12 player in the class. He's my last of my first round grades. So, yeah, I think that fit with Baltimore would be outstanding.
I like it. That is so Raven. I've got the Saints next. And since they're a team that's like always in cap hell, they're a team you could give them really any position because they're going to need it at some point. Do
they go with an edge rusher to replace Hendrickson?
Yeah, that's very possible.
But they have Davenport still, who's okay.
Yeah, he doesn't make a whole lot of noise. You know, you could go linebacker too.
I'm trying to look at my board right now.
Yeah. I don't want to open
their
up
offensive line
stacked,
tabs. So you don't need that.
Right. I don't want to open up any more tabs and kill them.
They could be a candidate for late round wide receiver.
Yeah, I think this is probably the spot where Bateman comes off the board. They never seem to have, like, outside of Michael Thomas, they don't have any, like, really well-developed, you know, dependable receivers. They just have kind of a rotating door of, you know, it could be this guy this week, you know. It's probably time to get some consistency next to him. And, you know, Emmanuel Sanders no longer there. So I'll go ahead and let's give Rashad Bateman to the Saints.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense too, because so much of their offense is based off of in-breaking routes and quick hitters, and that's what Bateman's great at. So yeah, I think that just makes a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, good yards after the catch type of receiver, gives a lot of effort. You know, not uber athletic, but I think with that type of offense, he could do a little bit. Green Bay Packers up next for you. Now, that's a team that drafts for the future, and you really never know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask Green Bay Packers fans, they're pretty sure that every pick they make in the first round is going to be a bad one. So we can, man, I could see them going edge rusher because Preston Smith was just not very good last year. Even though they did keep him, I just think they could go edge rusher here. They could go tackle. They could go center. There's a couple good centers that could go that high. They should probably go receiver, but I think receiver is more of a day 2 type thing. Let's go with Creed Humphrey here. You know, they just lost their all-pro center for some reason. I don't know why they didn't bring him back, but they lost their all-pro center. Creed Humphrey tested as, you know, relative athletic score. He tested as a 10 out of 10. So the best relative athletic score ever for a center in the history of RAS, which I think goes back to 1986 or something, or 1996 maybe. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for them. You can kind of keep that offensive line great for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that would be a very wise choice to do so. Buffalo Bills up next. That's a team that Colts fans are all too familiar with now by this point after what just happened in the playoffs. Boy, oh boy. Let's see. So their offense finally caught up with their defense. And defense was kind of one of the things that wasn't so solid for them. But what do we want to do? You know, I kind of want to go ahead and end Gregory Russo's slide right here with the Bills.
He fits a lot of what they like. They like those kind of guys who can go in and out.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at there. He's kind of raw still. He doesn't have a huge sample size. He's big and strong enough to play inside or out. So he's kind of like the Colts like to do, one of those balls of clay that they can just, you know, pick up and develop into whatever they want. I think teams really like his talent level, and I'm sure he'll probably be off the board by 30. It wouldn't surprise me if he even falls to the second round, but, you know, he's another one of those guys you have zero idea where he's going to go. So,
yeah,
Gregory Russo, edge defender, really defensive lineman in general for Miami. And then it's That's So Raven time again for you.
Yeah, this one's definitely going to be edge rusher here. And I think, with those athletic guys, I think either one of Jason Oweh or Joe Tryon makes a lot of sense, but I'm going to go with Joe Tryon for this one. I think Tryon's just more of a polished pass rusher at this point, even though he still could use some more in his game. But he just kind of fits their immediate need for impact edge rushers, where Oweh would need a little bit more refinement, where I think Tryon could be an instant guy. So, yeah, I think Joe Tryon would be a great fit for them. He definitely fits. Again, he's that so Raven for them. He just fits their long, athletic power rushers that they like to go with.
Yeah, it's almost to the point where I think Jason Oweh may not contribute very much at all as a rookie, no matter where he goes. He's just going to take a lot of development. It's like if teams could get away with having an early round pick on the practice squad, they could do it, but
yeah,
you got to give him snaps somewhere. But I think that type of waffling is going to, just like we're doing, is what's happening in draft rooms too.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe Tryon off the board. Now the Buccaneers, they don't need anything because they just won the Super Bowl, and that hurt my feelings.
And they brought back all 22 starters.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good example of guys just wanting to stay put and keep winning and not putting themselves first. You don't see that a whole lot.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
There's a lot of ways I could go with this. I mean, they do need a pass rusher of the future. They could
there's a lot of future things they need to consider.
Yeah, they could probably use another corner. They could probably use another receiver to play some slot. I think right tackle or not right tackle, left tackle of the future is a need too. So, I mean, there's a couple of future needs. So maybe like someone raw here.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of pointing towards Oweh.
Yeah.
Honestly, it could be just about time for one of these sneaky quarterbacks, the next wave of quarterbacks to come in. But as soon as a team invests a quarterback to develop behind Tom Brady, he plays 10 more years. So it's almost useless to do early. If Tom Brady was my quarterback, I don't think I'd take a guy in the first round because the dude is just going to play forever. So I think that Jason Oweh makes a lot of sense here because you already have Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul. You don't need contributions from him right away, but those dudes are not going to last forever. So Jason Oweh, I think there's a very strong chance he goes in the first, and shoot, we're going to put him right here at the very end of the first because this situation just makes a lot of sense for him.
Dude, I would love Elijah Moore there. I mean, not as someone, I'm not a Buccaneers fan, obviously, but Elijah Moore with those two receivers I have on the outside and just let him just kill people in the slot all day.
Yeah, an Antonio Brown replacement. That makes a lot of sense too.
Dude, I would love it if they went with that, just to see that offense. Again, we play them this year, so I really don't want to see that. But, man, if they add Elijah Moore to that offense, that'd be insane.
All right. Give me 1 second. Let me update this here. All right. So the full first round mock draft, our predictive mock draft, the things that make sense and we think could actually happen, that is now complete. We'll go ahead and go to another commercial break real quick. We'll read that before we go into our Colts 7 rounder. So support for our podcast is brought to you by Just Live. Zach, we both got our hookup from Just Live over the last few days. We got our gummies in the mail, and I can't wait to see what they're all about. Just Live is a trusted source for high-quality wellness CBD products created by athletes just for you. That's why Just Live came out with their new CBD gummy line. They have 6 different flavors and functions, including sleep, energy, focus, immunity, calm, and vitamin C. Plus, they're vegan and low sugar.
Just Live was founded by professional athletes Klay Thompson, Alex Morgan, Travis Pastrana, and Paul Rodriguez because they wanted to create a CBD product they could trust and could stand behind. If you need support with sleep, focus, energy, stress, or immune health, I highly recommend giving these a try. Right now, if you buy one of their new gummy products, you get one free. There are 6 different benefits to choose from, and instead of just choosing one, visit justlive.com and use the code SUPPORT to buy one, get one free. Buy one, get one free of the new gummy line with code SUPPORT at justlive.com. That's buy one, get one free at justlive.com. Use code SUPPORT. Jake, it's buy one,
get one free.
There we go.
This has just become a whole bit. I couldn't keep it together during that.
I mean, it tells you multiple times, buy one, get one free. I mean, you got to get all of them free.
If you don't know that you can buy one, get one free through them, I don't know what to tell you. All right. So with that out of the way, it is now time to round out our Colts 7-round mock. So, of course, in the first round, Zach pulled in Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle for Alabama. If you've been paying attention to him at all, that's a drum he's been beating for a little while. The Colts obviously need an offensive tackle. It seems like they're leaning that way early, and that's a guy that checks all the boxes for them. So it just makes a lot of sense. I don't see why that wouldn't, why that couldn't be one of their moves. It might be even better if they were able to trade down and do it if they had a partner. We obviously didn't do that in this mock, but also like Zach said, that's the case of a guy who's, his stock is right around there. You could take him at 21 if you don't want to lose out on him later in a trade down situation.
Yeah.
So with that, the Colts have 5 more picks. Don't forget, they don't have a 3rd rounder. They had to trade that to the Eagles in exchange for Carson Wentz. So their next pick here is the 2nd round, number 54 overall. Hold on, my dog is sleeping and she's dreaming and wagging her tail in her dream. So I have to wake her up so that. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, I can hear that. It's just smacking.
That's her wagging her tail in her dream. Hey. Good girl. Okay, there we go.
My dog's upstairs sleeping. He doesn't want to hear any of our stuff today.
Yeah, we had to have our dog contribution for the show.
Yeah.
That's one of the cutest things she could have been doing, so it's fine. Okay, so 2nd round. The Colts got their tackle. Do they go edge rusher next? There's a lot of ways they could go.
I think it comes down to edge, maybe receiver, but probably not. Even though I want to be different from my final predictive mock that I did for Stampede Blue, and I did Leatherwood, then Nico Collins. So I want to be a little different from that. So honestly, I'm leaning either edge, which could be a couple guys here that we can talk about, or Tommy Tremble from Notre Dame.
Now, with Tommy Tremble there, is that with Freiermuth and Brevin Jordan off the board, or that's your next guy up?
I would say with Freiermuth off the board, I think Tremble's going to go before Brevin Jordan after the way that Brevin Jordan tested. Tight ends, teams get scared of that, of non-elite athletes, tight ends. I mean, Tremble tested like a freak where Brevin Jordan didn't. So I think we could see Tremble go a little bit higher. And even though his value is probably like early 3rd with the Colts in this scenario, we're not trading back. Their highest pick next being that 2nd round. I do think they really want a playmaking tight end. And Tremble kind of does it all for them. So I could be talking to the Tremble here or a couple edge rushers, maybe some strong side athletic guys, maybe some guys who can rush the passer who fit the Ballard mold.
Yeah, so there are 2 names I'm looking here in the 2nd round. Tremble, just like you said, I think with what we heard about Reich being at Notre Dame's pro day and talking to the tight end coach for like an hour, there's obviously interest there. Yeah. And if Frank tells Chris Ballard that, I really like this tight end, then that's going to speak for him. So let's just say it's Tommy Tremble. I say Carlos Basham's probably off the board by there. So let's say it's like Tommy Tremble versus Joseph Osai. Where do you go in that situation?
I think the Colts would go Tremble there. Osai just kind of fits. Osai is the same mold as Banagoo and Toure and Kamoko Toure. Mm-hmm. I could see maybe a Peyton Turner there.
Yeah.
But again, like you said on our last podcast, how much do they value a strong side edge rusher? Which Turner would definitely be. He'd be a strong side guy who could sub inside. So I just, I don't think he would go there to them. So yeah, I think we should go Tommy Tremble here. I think they want that playmaking tight end. I think they want a guy who can kind of be not only the replacement for Doyle in the future, but also be like the better version of Jack Doyle. And I think that's what he can be.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Not that Jack Doyle wasn't good or needs to be replaced, even though he's getting older, but he's always been like a reliable middle of the road guy. His ceiling was very low. He was a guy that just got the job done. You could win with a guy like that, but he wasn't going to like rise to stardom or anything like that. Tommy Tremble has a little more potential to him, and they haven't had that like big time playmaking tight end in how long? It's been Dallas Clark really. Fleener and Dwayne Allen were supposed to be something along those lines, but they just haven't had it. Jim Irsay has been kind of talking about tight ends for a minute now, referencing back to Dallas Clark. And, if he's talking about the glory days players, it usually means he wants someone to try and fit that mold. And so I could see Tommy Tremble definitely being a play here.
If you want to put Zach's comment there on the screen, I do think it is a bit early for Tremble personally, but the way that I always view draft boards and I view drafts and mock drafts and stuff like that, like say I had a early third on a guy. If I'm in the mid second, I'm willing to reach for a guy that I really like. And honestly, I don't think that the Colts are going to draft at 21 or maybe not even at 54 either. So who knows if this mock even matters. But yeah, I feel like Tremble's a guy who's going to be really high on their board. And like I said in the first round, with Alex Leatherwood, maybe he's not worth the 21st pick, but you're willing to reach a little bit because he's a guy that you really want. Tremble could be the same way. And then Jacob said something about our defensive ends. This is a predictive mock. This isn't what we would do. If it were up to us, we would have taken Jalen Phillips or Joe Tryon right there at pick 21. But this is kind of what I don't know. Me personally, I think we talked about in the last podcast, but I've had a feeling that defensive end is going to go a lot later than what we expect in this draft.
Yeah, Chris Ballard just gave his pre-draft press conference last Friday, and he talked about he's like they're just not going to force anything, and he did go out of his way to kind of talk up each of their younger prospective defensive ends that they really like. We've heard him speak in a less sure manner about guys like Ben Banigou, for example. He spoke optimistically about him, and we've heard him not talk so shining about guys who haven't lived up to expectations before. So he really didn't need to sound that optimistic about him, but he kind of did. So I do think they kind of talked up some of their guys to make it seem like, if they didn't come away with this position and this position, that they do like the guys they do already have. But, Zach and I want to see the young guys play. We want to see, a healthy Toure, not, don't just put him out there on one leg, but we want to see
Banigou season.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ben Banigou season.
We'll want to see Toure and Banigou and see what those guys can do. So, yeah, that would be good. So, unfortunately, now they're not picking again until the fourth. They're not picking again until the fourth round. I should say with my double negative. But, yeah, for the sake of this and not trading, we wait all the way until pick 127 to pick again. Offensive tackle and tight end are off the board. So, what do you say now?
Defensive end is probably the most likely one. I could see a safety. I could see a safety. I've kind of mentioned that a lot this offseason, that the Colts want a third safety. They want to have more three safety looks. If you think about last year, they anticipated Blackman, Willis, and Hooker all playing together until Hooker got his injury right when Blackman came back, and they never really were able to do that. So I do think they want more three safety sets, and for whatever reason, they're not playing George Odom as their third safety. Sean Davis is on the roster, but in my opinion, if he's your third safety that you're playing a lot, I think there's a lot of issues with that. So I think they could go safety here or defensive end, maybe even receiver, because they seem to be saying all offseason that they want more playmakers on offense. We did that with Tremble with the last pick, but maybe a receiver here too. So I think defensive end makes the most sense, but safety, receiver, maybe corner could be in play here. What do you think?
Yeah, the edge class isn't super inspiring at this time. At this time is like Hamilcar Rashed Jr. still there, Quincy Roche, Janarius Robinson. Are those guys still there? Safety, I know Tyreek Gillespie is someone in the crosshairs there at the fourth round. You've talked about him quite a bit. Josh Bledsoe as well. cornerback is an option, but again, it's not a group you're super in love with. Receiver makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of names there. Seth Williams, Tamorian Terry, some bigger guys, Des Fitzpatrick, Tariq Black that you think maybe could fit along there.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd love to go with either Ellerson Smith or Shaka Toney, but I don't know if they would be there in the mid-4th.
Right, yeah. That's I don't have them highlighted at this point anymore because I do think they would be gone, unfortunately.
I think –
yeah.
So I think if we're going to go pass rusher, I think Janarius Robinson makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I think if we're going to go safety, you could go like Divine Diablo. You could go Tyree Gillespie. James Wiggins, I've heard, is going to go around the 4th round range or so. I think James Wiggins would be a good one here, actually. James Wiggins really fits a lot. And he's had the injury concerns in college, which is a trend with Colts safeties, apparently, when Ballard drafts them. But freaky athlete who can kind of do it all. I like James Wiggins. Have you watched any of him?
I have not yet.
Okay.
See, you said kind of a do-it-all. Not really I mean, injuries are his downfall, but he's not really a liability in any one area.
Yeah, either him or Diablo would be really cool. Because Divine Diablo is interesting because he can play linebacker as well. He's 226. But he also ran a 4.45 at his combine. And also a big thing that I noted in my Build-A-Ballard this morning, which is about safeties. Divine Diablo came in as the number 1 safety who fit Chris Ballard. When I interviewed Diablo, he told me that he went out of his way to play special teams his entire career. A big thing with Virginia Tech is you get the Beamer number 25 jersey if you are a contributor on your side of the ball and special teams. And he, I think, broke the Virginia Tech record for most times wearing the 25 jersey. So he does special teams, so that's a big thing for a third safety. He can play linebacker, which can keep Willis as a deep safety. He can play deep safety and bring Willis in the box. So I think he makes a lot of sense at this pick, honestly, if you want to go safety.
Yeah, I mean, that does make sense. I don't see why not. I think both of us could expect it to be a day 2 option as well. So to get it here in the 4th, that's not so bad.
Yeah.
Is that the way you think they would go?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would, again, trying to keep my predictive mock out of this just for the sake of being different. My predictive mock, I had Tyree Gillespie being their pick in the 4th. I think Divine Diablo would make a lot of sense here. So, yeah, let's go with Diablo. I really think he'd fit the Colts team really, really well. And, yeah, I guess we do have a lot of faith in the DNs, just predictably.
I don't know why that came up again. But, yeah, David, Hooker hasn't signed anywhere, but I think we've been saying since the start of the offseason that we just don't expect him to be back whatsoever. It seems like a thing where probably both sides just want to start anew. I really don't see Hooker coming back.
No, I don't think he expects it. I don't think the Colts expect it. I don't think there's really interest on either side. He just didn't fit the defensive scheme, and then he had also the injury issues. So I don't know. It just doesn't make sense for either side, in my opinion.
Oh, I would agree with that. So we'll go ahead and slate Divine Diablo there. Got a lot of Virginia Tech action going on here in this mock.
Hey, I'm a Virginia Tech fan, so I'm excited.
Oh, that's right. You're not too far from the area. That makes sense.
No, I grew up a Virginia Tech fan, dude. Eddie Royal and Brandon Flowers, and actually all the Fuller brothers. All the Fuller brothers were my favorite growing up.
They had a running back who I used to love. I think he was number 4. He made it
Wilson.
to the NFL.
Wilson.
Yes, that sounds right.
And then he had the concussion issues in the NFL and retired like 3 years in.
Yeah.
First round pick, David Wilson.
That's right. It was David Wilson. They also had, I think he went to the Giants. They also had a kid from Warren Central over here in Indianapolis, the east side of Indianapolis. He made it to the Colts. He's a running back, Chris Evans.
Yeah. So fun. Okay. So randomly, I'll just throw this out there before we continue. But Virginia Tech in the early 2010s or whatever had 4 years in a row where they had a different running back start, or I think it was 3 years in a row. Chris Evans started, right? Broke the Virginia Tech single season record for rushing yards. The next season was Ryan Williams, and he broke the Virginia Tech single season rushing record.
Wow.
Then David Wilson took over, and he broke the Virginia Tech single season rushing record. So they just followed each other up with like the better running back each year, and broke the single season records. I thought that was the coolest thing ever when I was a kid. I loved all of them. Ryan Williams, actually, who played for the Cowboys and the Cardinals, went to Stonewall High School here in Virginia. which is right down the road where I grew up, maybe like 10 minutes away. So, I'm a huge Virginia Tech fan. I love everything about them. And Devon Diablo has been a big face down there for the last couple of years. Former receiver, too, which, it's another thing to throw out there about him.
They like guys who have switched positions. It gives them versatility.
Yeah.
All right, so heading into the 5th round.
We need defensive end here.
Yeah, it's got to happen at some point.
Who are some good strong side ends here that we could go with?
So I've seen these names but haven't gotten to them yet. Malcolm Kuntz and William Bradley King. Do either of those fit the mold of what they might want?
So weirdly, I think Kuntz is going to go higher than people think. I've seen a lot of expert mocks where he's been in the top 60, and it's like everyone's been really confused about it. Yeah, I don't get it. Bradley King is like 24, 25 right now, so I don't know if that'll be their guy.
Yeah.
One guy who I'm kind of thinking who was a Senior Bowl guy, I just want to see how he tested real quick.
Is it Jalen Hayes by any chance?
Is Chauncey Golston out of Jalen Hayes maybe too. I think he's interesting. Chauncey Golston. Just I want to see how we. Oh, you know what my favorite? So I got this new computer recently, and my latest search history, how you have on Google the latest couple sites you've been to.
Yeah.
Has the RAS RAS site that Kent made. Is my 3rd most visited site. I am always on this site. I love it so much.
Yeah, come draft season, you always got brand new favorite sites because it's for everything you write, you go to those websites.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so Chauncey Golston. Let's see how he tested. 34-inch arms, 36. Oh, he actually fits the bat. Oh, okay. This is my pick.
Okay.
So I made a tweet yesterday, and actually I didn't include him in it, which I should have, because I didn't think he would have hit the markers. Yesterday I had a tweet where Chris Ballard has never taken an edge rusher. I think there's been a guys who have missed a couple, but every single edge rusher he's ever taken has been a Senior Bowl invite and has had under 1.7 seconds 10-yard split in their 40. And then has all but one have had 34-inch arms. And all but one have had a 34-inch vertical. So it's out of 12 guys too. So it's a pretty good sample size to look at. So I actually cut that down and looked at a couple guys. And honestly, Chauncey Golston, I didn't even think would have hit it. So he technically would have been the 6th guy. But he's 6'4", 270, 34.75-inch arms, 36-inch vertical, and then a 1.63 on the 10-yard split. So yeah, he's not a bendy guy. I know a lot of people will be upset about that. His 3-cone was 7.47. But on film, I'm a big fan of him. He's a high-effort guy, a great run defender. He's never going to be a top-tier pass rusher in the league, but in the 5th round, if you can get a guy like that who can be a solid starter, I think it's a good pick. So Chauncey Golston to be a strong side defensive end rotation with Tyquan Lewis, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the perfect size for their strong side end. And Jacob here, you asked about Patrick Jones. I think he probably just wouldn't still be around at that point.
I don't think Jones hit many of the – I think he tested a lot worse than I thought, if I remember. Let me see what he tested as, because I'm just on this site right now. I remember being disappointed in how Patrick Jones tested. 6.29 RAS, which is fairly average. 32-inch arms, only a 31-inch vertical. He did have 1.58 10-yard split, which is absurd for a 260-pound guy. So that's good. But, yeah, not very explosive, short arms. I just don't see him being a Ballard type.
Yeah, if the glove don't fit.
Then you must quit. No.
Yeah. 6th round, 206. We have not added a receiver yet. So that's certainly a possibility. Let's see, kind of looking at Tamorian Terry, Des Fitzpatrick, Josh Palmer, and your guy, Josh Imortabebe. Do we do it to get him in here?
We should. We didn't put Jacoby Stevens in here, so we might have to put Josh Imortabebe.
I don't think fans would love us taking 2 safeties.
That's true. I mean, he's going to go in like the 3rd or 4th round range anyway, so we couldn't put Jacoby down here. We trade up to the 4th round for Jacoby as well. No.
Always the 4th round trade.
Always. Receiver makes sense. An underrated position they could pick that I was kind of told recently is interior offensive line.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I think, Glow's not going to be around after this year, and I feel like they think Pinter is only a center. I don't think they view him at all as a guard, which that was kind of telling to me remember when Quentin Nelson moved over to tackle for a couple snaps in that Raiders game?
Yeah.
And they put Joey Hunt in there?
Yes.
You remember that?
Yeah, that was an interesting configuration.
Yeah.
Not one we would have thought ahead of time.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I'm looking at these guards who'd be around that late, and I don't really like them though. Would Aaron Banks be there? Or he'd probably go higher than that.
Yeah, I've seen late buzz about Banks, so I don't think that he would still be there.
Yeah, I don't like many of the guards that would be there. Maybe Robert Jones from Middle Tennessee State. Nah, I don't know. So wide receiver, Emator Bebe makes a ton of sense. But you know how the Colts are. They like their special teams guys here, especially because if Des Patman is going to make the team this next year, you need a guy who can play special teams because Patman didn't play special teams last year, or he would have been active. So you kind of need someone who can play a little special teams. I don't think Emator Bebe plays special teams.
No. I'll put you on the clock here. Gun to your head, because I have kind of a sneaky next position I might want to look at for the 7th round.
Okay. Let me look real quick. Let me look at... I kind of want to look at linebacker.
I was thinking that or running back.
Running back sneaky. Very sneaky. How about we go with... Here's a decent one. Let's go with Anthony Hines from Texas A&M. I don't know if you've seen it at all. Linebacker.
That's the you put him in your build about, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. He was one of the honorable mentions. He wasn't like a Bane guy. But not super tall, 6'2", 225, 32-inch arms though, which we know the Colts love. Really good strength, which was a big thing with Okereke when they drafted him. Okereke was kind of that more slender linebacker who could move, but he was also a really strong backer, and that's why he could play some of that Sam.
Yeah.
I think Hines could play some Sam backer for them, and also could do a little bit more on special teams too. So, because the Colts love taking special teamers with their late picks. That's what they love doing it. Isaiah Rodgers was drafted purely to play special teams. Zaire Franklin. Glasgow. Zaire Franklin and Matthew Adams were more special teams picks. So they just like the special teamers. And I think Hines could be kind of a replacement for when Adams and Franklin potentially leave this next offseason.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Not every draft pick has to be, even late round. You're not always just looking for some like diamond in the rough who could be a star. Sometimes you just need role players. You just need special teamers, and you get a cheap guy in the draft like that. You don't have to buy through free agency. That's just those kind of modest moves like that. Let's see. What up, Lawrence? Our guy Lawrence is in the house now.
Lawrence Owen.
Yeah. So this final pick, a couple guys I was looking at. I'm not super sure if they'd be there in the 7th, but a couple Senior Bowl mentions here: Elijah Mitchell and Khalil Herbert.
Khalil Herbert's my dude. I don't know if he'll be there.
Back to the Virginia Tech well again.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be there. Honestly, he had a good pro day too, and a really good last season. There's running back. We can honestly go any position here. Defensive line.
Yeah,
like interior,
kind of a dart throw.
Yeah, you go interior defensive line here. I think get that depth to compete with Taylor Stallworth. Corner obviously makes a lot of sense. Receiver,
I do think corner's got to happen at some point. I was kind of looking at it earlier on the 5th round. fourth, fifth round guys like Cameron Bynum and Keith Taylor.
Something that I've made note of in my build Ballards, and again, they're not exact, but Chris Ballard, I think, has taken, I want to say it's 12 corners in 7 drafts as a GM, or in his time with the Colts and time with the Chiefs. So that's the position that he takes a ton of shots at. So even when you look at the roster right now and you see 6 guys, you see, TJ Carey, Xavier Rhodes, Kenny Moore, Isaiah Rodgers, Rock Ya-Sin, and Marvell Tell. You have 6 guys who probably make the roster. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't put it past Ballard to add a 7th guy and compete, because TJ Carey and Isaiah Rodgers probably, and even Marvell Tell probably aren't locks at this moment for the roster next year, or maybe even Rock Ya-Sin, if he has a really bad offseason, they could probably trade him away. So there's a lot of guys who aren't really locks right now. So even adding a guy in the 7th just to compete, I think makes a lot of sense. And there is one guy who I think will be there in the 7th, and Dane Brugler actually has a 5th round grade on him, which is the only person I've seen even have a draftable grade on him. Is Brandon Stevens, corner from SMU. Let me see if I can pull him up. He actually tests as a 9.2 RAS. But fun fact about him, running back from UCLA for the first 2 years of his college career, transfers over to SMU, and they move him to corner, and has I think he has like 22 pass deflections over his 2 seasons as a corner, which is really good. He's 6 foot 220, 19 on the bench, 38-inch vertical, 4.44 40-yard dash, and then he hit the arm standard of 32 inches as well. So I don't know, if he hits all the character stuff or anything. I've never talked to the guy, but I think those traits are something that the Colts could bet on there in the 7th round.
I like it. That one comes out of nowhere. Give me his name one more time.
Brandon Stevens, corner from SMU. And honestly, I'll give a shout out to JV3 on Twitter, because he's the one who he messaged me about him a couple weeks ago and told me that Dane has a 5th rounder on him. So I checked him out, and honestly, his film is really good. I think I have a tweet or 2 about him. Really
Jay
interesting.
Uncovered him.
Yeah, Jay uncovered him in Dane's draft guide and sent him my way. So I'll definitely give Jay the shout out for that. But Brandon Stevens, I think, does fit a lot of the Colts hits. And honestly, when I re-updated all my Build-A-Ballards the other day, I did add Brandon Stevens as an honorable mention in there.
Very good. I like it.
Cool.
So yeah, it's we got to the end here. First up, offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood, followed up by Tommy Tremble, the tight end down in Notre Dame. Safety Divine Diablo from Virginia Tech with the 4th round. 5th round was Chauncey Golston, the edge from Iowa, and Anthony Hines, linebacker from Texas A&M in the 6th round. And then our final pick was cornerback Brandon Stevens from SMU. So that's what we got there. We're encroaching on an hour and a half here, so we'll probably go ahead and cut out here pretty soon. But I'll go ahead and post these results as well as the 1st round mock that we did, so you guys can check that out again. Well, Zach, you got anything else before we cut her loose? Just looking forward to the draft then.
No, we can throw Lawrence's question up there though and answer.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you wanna throw Lawrence up there? There we go.
Yeah. So Lawrence said, any good special teamers you think the Colts might grab as undrafted free agents? Seems like a certain All-Pro is not very happy and may need to be replaced soon. That's George Odom. Yeah, I kind of thought we might talk to George Odom already, as for like media availability, because I wanted to ask about that, and I'm sure it's gonna be one of the first things asked to him, but we haven't heard from him yet. But yeah, it's I don't know. We kind of covered that with Anthony Hines and Brandon Stevens being potential late round special teams additions. I was going over their latest picks recently. So George Odom had, I think, a 90.9 grade on special teams for Pro Football Focus, and Jordan Glasgow was just right behind him.
Yep.
So the Colts got really, really good special teams play out of their rookie there. And Odom made first team All-Pro. And according to PFF, Glasgow wasn't far behind him. So if Odom were to, I don't know, let's say hypothetically 1 out or whatever, they do have good options on site already. But in this instance, Anthony Hines and Brandon Stevens would both be contributors.
Yeah, and then also, if you want to throw an undrafted free agent, I'll throw one out to you, Lawrence. Jordan Peters from Auburn, safety who is kind of a bruiser type when he plays defense. It gets beat a little bit a little bit down the field, so maybe you don't play him too much on actual defense. But I Bleav he had 6 block kicks in his college career. It might have been 5, but 5 or 6 block kicks in his college career. One of the best special teamers in all of football over the last couple of years. So I think he'd be a great addition. I think the Colts have met with him a couple times as well this offseason. So maybe they are looking at potential George Odom replacements, and maybe we could see a trade. I don't know. I'm not too sure. And then if you want to throw up his other one there about Leatherwood real quick before we close it up, just because I think he missed the first part. We're doing a predictive mock here. I picked for the Colts. Obviously, I would prefer, and what I think is going to happen is the Colts are going to trade back, maybe out of the first round entirely, but I do know that they really, really like Alex Leatherwood. He checks every single box from athleticism, run blocking, 41-game starter for a team like Alabama of all teams, and I think that they can really get him up to a really good level with pass blocking as well. So he checks every box. I know they really, really like him, and he's getting that late first round buzz. So yeah, 21's probably a little early. I wouldn't take him at 21, but I could see the Colts, potentially grab him there to make sure he doesn't slip a little further.
Yeah, so that covers it, ladies and gentlemen. This, if you relate to the show or what have you, this will still go up on our normal feeds. It'll go up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. But we'll go ahead and close it out for today. Please remember to subscribe to the show and give us a rating and review. We can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bleav in Colts, and me personally at Jake Arthur NFL on Twitter and Facebook, as well as Jake Arthur _ on Instagram. Zach is on Twitter and Instagram at ZachHicks2, and be sure to follow his written work on Stampede Blue and Cover One, and mine on Sports Illustrated's Horseshoe Huddle. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online and Just Live. And at Just Live, you can buy one, get one free. So don't you ever forget. If you're interested in advertising on Bleav Podcasts, please contact them at Bleav.com. If you're interested in advertising on this show specifically, just shoot us an email at BleavinColts@gmail.com. You will, of course, hear from Zach and me again soon to chat all about the Colts draft haul. Just make sure to follow us on social media. That's where you can find all of our stuff the quickest. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon all about the draft stuff. Take care.